Welcome, Sudhanva. Lovely to have you in our college.
I'm delighted to be here.
And we are really honored to have you. And especially for this workshop, small meetings have happened earlier, but having you with us today and a kind of a workshop that you're taking, we're really, really very happy to have you. First question, I think, which is because we interacted or we were together for celebration of your 50th of Jan Manch, and our student collaborated with you. How was the experience with the student and, of course, with the production, whatever you had? Some highlighted versions of it.
In this year, 2023, right. Jan Natya Manch, which is a street theatre group based in Delhi, we completed our 50 years. We were formed in 1973. So sometime before this, we had started thinking about what can we do to mark this occasion. And one of the things that we decided to do was to create an exhibition, because a lot of the areas where we go and perform, these are working class areas, yes, bastis, yeah. Also schools, colleges and so on. They've seen our plays for many years, but to go back there with our work in a slightly different form, in the form of an exhibition, is a different experience. And we thought that it would be nice to acknowledge the fact that they have hosted our performances, they have kept us alive for such a long time, and then to give them a sense of what those 50 years have meant in terms of our output. So we approached your institution, and it was fantastic that you came on board. This was a bunch of students who spent a lot of time. Actually, I was really surprised and delighted to see how much time and effort went into learning about the history of Jan Natya Manch. Yeah. And about Safdar Hashmi and about various other things that are connected to us. Right. And to really internalize a lot of that learning and try and then give an expression to it in graphic form as an exhibition. Now that is one part of it. The other part of it was also what would be the physical form of the exhibition. Yeah, because we gave them very tough
proposition.
Parameters,
display.
Let's say. We said that this is something that has to be self-standing, it has to be weatherproof, it has to be something that, not very highly educated or not very highly literate people should be able to relate to. It should contain the spirit of our work, absolutely, which is, social, political, and so on. And it has to have an aesthetic that would not be too polished. That would not look too corporate in some ways.
Got it.
And so to put all of this together in a budget that would make sense to us, that we can actually produce that. And it's not an easy ask, and particularly for students. What they produced was really something that I and the whole group, we were thrilled with what they came up with. Most importantly, when we took that exhibition on the 1st of January, which is the anniversary of the attack in which Safdar Hashmi was killed, and every year we go back to Jhandapur, which is where the attack happened, and that's where the exhibition was shown for the first time. And it was just amazing how many of our working class friends and comrades came there, looked at the exhibition, and they were delighted. They were just amazed at what had been done. There were lots of children as well, for whom 50 years made no sense, of course. Yeah. But what they were seeing, photographs, text, this, that, reading, oh, I know this uncle, he had played that role in, whatever, right? So that kind of thing, it was very interactive in that way. And it also blended in very nicely. It didn't seem alien to the context for which it was built.
Where it was done.
But it's also very artistically refined. Yeah. It's beautiful.
I think it was such a pleasure working on that project with you all. Our students get enamored, the moment they get some live project and they have to interact with the people outside the college. Anyway, they're super excited. And to tell you that there's two different set of students who worked as one communication and architecture student. Both of them worked together. And it was so beautifully blended together. There's no confusion. They adhered to the deadlines and everything went off smoothly.
Absolutely.
And it was pleasure again. And then they were not expected everybody to be there, but the whole class was there and we were happily surprised about it. But knowing you as a person, actor, director, editor, and political activist, I think it's pretty many roles that you played together. And top it all, you were also teaching in NIIAD as well as Jamia Millia. I'm sure you must have done many more. How do you, weave all these chapters together to be an individual self?
No, I mean, so sometimes when people ask me, oh, how do you manage?
Yeah,
my answer is I don't, I mismanage. But I mean, look, all these things in my mind are connected in a fundamental way. All of these roles, whether that of a publisher, as an author, as an actor, as a theatre maker, and as an activist, all of these are about communicating ideas that are dear to me and to my comrades out into the world. It's not just communicating to people like us, but going out into the world and talking to people who may or may not share your worldview fully or partly. And I love that. I love interacting with people.
Absolutely.
I love listening to people. And I'm always startled by how many different ways in which people look at their lives and how they deal with their lives. I mean, life can be tough, right?
Absolutely.
And particularly, in a country like India, which has multiple languages, which has multiple religions,
Absolutely.
which has, people who look, feel very different and so on. How do you live together yet, despite all of our differences? How do we come together as a country, as a culture, and so on? And I feel like all the different things that I do, as an actor, as a theatre maker, as a writer, as a publisher, etc., all of that is connected at that level, which is to reach out to the people and say that there is a way in which we can come together.
Absolutely.
As human beings,
right,
with respect for each other. And I feel like if you kind of zoom out a little bit, I feel like in all of these roles that I play, there's the one thing that holds it together is that I'm a storyteller.
Yeah, I think that's one is really required.
Yeah, and why do we need stories in our lives? I mean, anybody.
Absolutely.
Why do cultures need stories? We need stories because stories give us the opportunity to experience or to think about life in a way that is different from our own life.
Since you are political activist, which I may call, and the story which you related has a strong repercussion what's happening right now within the country.
Well, I mean, honestly, I feel like right now in India, there are, broadly speaking, of course, there are multiple,
Yes,
but broadly speaking, I think there are two ways in which you can look at this country. One is an exclusivist way that excludes a lot of people, exclusionary. The other is inclusionary.
Inclusion, correct.
I stand on this side. I am
Inclusion.
for inclusion.
Absolutely.
I am for recognizing that we can be different,
Absolutely.
but we are all, part of this
Together.
great country.
Right.
And that we might speak different languages, we might have different beliefs, we might follow different cultures, we might wear different types of clothes, we might eat different kinds of food, etc., etc. But difference doesn't necessarily mean conflict.
When you're creating a baseline story, who all are actually what should I say, stakeholder there? Is it a group together, or it's somebody's idea and somebody flaunts that idea and a lot of takers become, and you consolidate one idea. So it becomes, uniformal, a concern of many, not individual one. Does that way it happens?
That we are extremely collaborative and we are extremely democratic. Now, sometimes some people feel like we are too democratic. But we believe that it's really important for people to articulate what they feel. And sometimes, because Jan Natya Manch has been around for such a long time, 50 years, so we have effectively become an intergenerational group.
Yeah.
There are people in the group who are now 70, and there are people in the group who are 20 or 19 or 18 even. So what you have is there can be a gap of some 40 years, 50 years between the members of the group. Now, obviously, they will come with different perspectives, they will have different life experiences and so on. And it's really important, particularly in a group like this, to ensure that people of different ages, people of different social backgrounds, people of different linguistic skills, people of different educational backgrounds, they all feel like it belongs to them. They have a platform, they can speak. And they can speak without fear. They can speak confidently. It's really important to build that.
Absolutely.
And that takes time. So sometimes it feels like, to some people, it feels like, why are we discussing this so much? And why are they insisting that everybody must speak? No. And why is it that in rehearsal, for instance, when we come together in rehearsal, why is it that every actor is pushed and pushed and pushed to contribute actively? Not just to follow instructions, but contribute actively. And it's beautiful, you realize that somebody new comes into the group with no background in theatre, no background in acting, because they've not had that privilege.
Yeah, absolutely.
They come from a section of society that has not had that privilege.
Yeah.
And they come in, but they want to try it out, they feel like they can do it, but it takes them time, and then suddenly, in a matter of a few weeks, they suddenly make that change. From being instruction takers to becoming creators, to becoming expressors of their ideas,
right.
And that is a most beautiful and thrilling thing to see. It is wonderful. Also to make sure that within the group, because there are older people and younger people, and always there's a constant inflow of young people, it's important also organizationally to train the group so that the leadership of the group is also multi-generational. That it's not just the older people who are deciding everything, younger people are feeling like, we just have to follow whatever these oldies decide and so on. So as a result, many of us who have more years in the group are not in leadership roles within the group. And there are much younger people than us who are in leadership roles. And that is really important for the life of the group, for the health of the group.
To sustain. Yeah.
And so when we work together on making a play, rarely does it happen, very rarely, that one person gets an idea and the play. Of course, ideas will come from somewhere. One person might have some particular idea.
Or maybe
sometimes they have also a fairly well-formed idea. That can also happen. But rarely does it happen. I mean, it never happens that wherever the idea may have come from one person, from discussions, from 2 people, from 10 people, whatever it might be. The act of, in the making of the play, in the actualizing of that idea into an actual play, in that everybody contributes.
Yes, so it's as a collaborative effort.
Very, very collaborative.
What role does the spontaneity in this kind of a very collaborative effort that how much role does the spontaneity play in that? Is it, or it could be that fraction of moment, but it would be thought through again and then made it look like a spontaneous effort, but it's really well thought through and, practiced enough to be, in that kind of a situation and a field.
It's a great question, because there's a question that as an actor one faces that all the time.
Right, yeah.
One wants to appear spontaneous, but of course it's not spontaneous because you've rehearsed it a million times.
Exactly.
But when you're doing it, it must appear spontaneous. But also, I believe that spontaneity or creativity is not something that is, innate in people. In the sense that it's not like some people are just born with it and some people don't have it.
Yeah.
No. Everybody is creative. Every single human being on this planet is creative. It's a question of conditions. It's a question of being given the opportunity.
There's no doubt about it.
It's a question of training and so on. Creativity is, a huge part of creativity is about the training. It's about practice. It's about doing it every day, showing up for work and doing it repeatedly. You will become more creative if you do it a million times.
Yeah, if you practice, and that is how you make.
Yeah, not by rote. You don't do it by rote, of course. It's not like you're mindlessly doing the same task every day. But to be creative, you have to be creative every day.
Yeah, you have to be in that kind of a situation to be able to do something which is creative.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get your point completely.
So I believe that creativity is something that can be trained. It's something that you can work on yourself to enhance it. You can also decide you can also shut your mind, and then you're no longer creative. That can happen to people. you know.
No, some people are introvert. They may sieve through an idea multiple times within themselves. They may be creative, but it's not reflective, you know, in their to the outer world maybe. So maybe there is something which is going on within the mind.
People like that will find some expression for it also.
Yeah, it may come out in a very, very softer way of interaction somewhere. It will surface. And the moment they say a sentence, you realize, oh, must have been really sieved through very well with a full mind.
Correct.
But anyway, it doesn't come out in a regular manner. But I mean, it could be possible. That's what my Anuj is trying. What have you been teaching in Jamia Millia is, I think, in mass communication, if I've read it correct.
Well, I taught there for a number of years, but
right?
But now for a long time I've not taught there.
Doesn't matter. What was your experience after all this?
So I taught at the Jamia, at the Mass Communication Research Center, MCRC.
Yes.
Is where I taught, and I was teaching street theatre there, which is part of the communication, MA that they used to have at that time. Now, of course, there are many specializations, but at that time I used to teach street theatre in Jamia. In NID, on the other hand, I have taught all kinds of different things.
Like what?
I have taught something similar to what I'm teaching here.
All right.
Which is, here I'm doing acting for film directors.
Achha.
So how do film directors direct actors? How do they understand what is acting? You know, breaking apart a little decoding or opening up the craft of acting to non-actors, but who need to deal with actors, you know. So that's what I'm teaching here. In NID I've taught this, but I've also taught acting for animators.
Oh.
Which is a whole different thing, because
it would be very different.
with animators, they don't even have bodies to work with. Directors have human beings to work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, animators have to come up with the whole thing in their own head. And so I've taught that. I've taught acting for directors. I have taught theatre at NIT. Back in the day when I used to be a full-time faculty there, then I used to do inputs in exhibition design and graphic design and etc., semiotics, this, that, whatever, all kinds of things.
Thank you so much for being with us, and it was a pleasure talking to you. But informally, we'll have many more questions.
Certainly. Likewise. It's a great pleasure being here. I've admired this institute for a very long time. I have many friends who come and teach here, including Shahs and others. Prachi, Shahs, and many other friends have come and taught here. But I just did not, it just hasn't worked till now.
Yes.
So I'm delighted to be here, and I hope that this is the first of many.
More involvement, yeah, absolutely.